There is a particular kind of tired that has nothing to do with sleep. You can rest for 8 hours and wake up already carrying it. It isn't sadness exactly, and it isn't even really about anything specific. It's closer to a low hum underneath everything, the sense that life is a task you have to keep performing day after day, with no clear finish line and no clear reason why. Philosophers have known about this feeling for a very long time. Some gave it careful names. Some built entire systems trying to explain it away, or explain why it exists at all. Arthur Schopenhauer thought this tiredness wasn't a malfunction, but almost the default setting of being alive, the natural result of a will that never stops wanting, even when there's nothing left worth wanting. Other thinkers, centuries apart from him and from each other, kept circling the same basic suspicion. That consciousness itself might come with a kind of built-in fatigue, simply from being aware, day after day, of your own continuing to exist. That's a strange thing to sit with, because it means the tiredness might not be a personal failure. It might not even be a problem to solve, in the way you'd solve a broken appliance. It might be closer to a signal, one that's been misread for most of human history. So, here is the real question underneath the question. Not, how do I fix this feeling, as if it were a glitch, but something quieter and harder to answer honestly. What if the tiredness isn't asking you to disappear? What if it's asking you to live differently? Imagine a man walking on a treadmill, convinced the changing scenery on a screen in front of him means he's actually going somewhere. Schopenhauer used almost exactly this image, in his own language, to describe human desire. You want something, you get it. Relief lasts a moment, then boredom creeps back in, and you want something else. He argued this isn't a flaw in how you're doing life. It's the basic architecture of wanting itself. The treadmill doesn't malfunction when it fails to arrive anywhere. Arriving was never the design. This idea shows up again, in different clothes, across cultures that never spoke to each other. Long before Schopenhauer, Buddhist philosophy described a similar structure under the word dukkha, often translated as suffering, but closer in meaning to an underlying unsatisfactoriness, a background static running beneath even the good moments, because craving itself keeps regenerating the very need it promises to satisfy. Get the job, and a new want appears. Get the relationship, and a new want appears. The tiredness you feel isn't proof that you're doing life wrong. It may be proof that you're a conscious being doing exactly what conscious beings have always done. But here's what makes this genuinely difficult to sit with, rather than just interesting to think about. Modern life rarely gives you permission to interpret the tiredness this way. It's usually framed as a personal glitch, something to optimize, medicate, hustle past, or fix with the right morning routine. You're taught to treat exhaustion with life as evidence of insufficient gratitude, insufficient effort, insufficient positivity. So, the tiredness doesn't just sit there, it picks up a second layer. Shame about feeling tired in the first place, stacked directly on top of the tiredness itself, which means many people aren't only carrying existential fatigue, they're carrying the belief that a well-adjusted person wouldn't feel this, and that belief turns an old, shared, deeply human experience into something that feels shameful and isolating instead. If Schopenhauer and the Buddhist traditions are right, though, this reframes the entire problem. The exhaustion may not be a personal defect requiring a personal cure. It may be the oldest and most honest response to noticing the treadmill for what it is, which raises an uncomfortable follow-up. If the tiredness is built into consciousness itself, is there any way out of it at all, or only different ways of relating to it? Here is where the pessimist's account starts to run into serious resistance. Not from people who deny that tiredness is real, but from thinkers who deny it's the whole story. Albert Camus took existential exhaustion just as seriously as Schopenhauer did, arguably more seriously, because he built an entire philosophy around confronting it directly, rather than explaining it away. But Camus arrived somewhere different. He agreed that the universe offers no built-in meaning, no finish line, no cosmic reason why any of this should matter. He called this collision between our hunger for meaning and the universe's silence in response, the absurd. But his conclusion wasn't that exhaustion is simply the correct, final response to being conscious. His conclusion was that the response is a choice, made freely, over and over, and that choice is where a person's dignity actually lives. This matters because it challenges the idea that tiredness is purely structural, purely built into the machinery of desire. If Camus is right, the treadmill metaphor is incomplete. Yes. Wanting regenerates itself. Yes. Satisfaction is temporary. But he'd argue that the exhaustion many people feel isn't only coming from the wanting, it's coming from expecting the wanting to eventually stop, expecting arrival, expecting some final permanent peace that was never actually on offer. The fatigue on this view isn't proof that existence is a trap. It's proof that you're still, quietly, waiting for permission to stop treating life like a problem to be solved. There is also a more clinical complication worth naming honestly. Not all of this fatigue is philosophical. Depression can produce something that feels identical to existential tiredness, a flattening, a loss of appetite for life, but with roots that are physiological, chemical, situational, sometimes treatable in very concrete ways that have nothing to do with metaphysics. Treating every instance of this exhaustion as a deep philosophical truth about consciousness risks missing something that, for some people, is actually a medical or psychological condition deserving direct care, not just a change in worldview. So, the honest picture gets more complicated, not less. Some of the tiredness may be structural, built into wanting itself, exactly as Schopenhauer described. Some of it may be a failure to accept the absurd on Camus' terms, still quietly hoping for a finish line that doesn't exist. And some of it may not be philosophical at all, which leaves an uncomfortable, unresolved question hanging in the air. How do you know which one you're carrying? And does the answer change what you're supposed to do next? Maybe the answer isn't to figure out which philosopher was right, and then adopt their conclusion like a prescription. Maybe the tiredness was never asking to be correctly diagnosed. Because here is what all three perspectives quietly agree on, even while disagreeing about almost everything else. The tiredness is information, not failure. Schopenhauer heard it as the truth about desire itself. The Buddhist traditions heard it as an invitation to loosen your grip on craving rather than escalate it. The same underlying respect for the symptom. None of them tell you to silence it, override it, or feel ashamed of it. So, perhaps the actual shift isn't about making the tiredness disappear. It's about no longer treating your own exhaustion as evidence that something is wrong with you for having it. The universe will keep offering no final answer. And some mornings, the weight you're carrying may genuinely need more than a new way of thinking about it. It may need another person, a doctor, a real conversation, real help. All of that can be true at once, without any of it meaning you are broken. Maybe the tiredness was never the enemy of being alive. Maybe it was the part of you still awake enough to notice that something about how you've been living doesn't fit, and still, quietly, asking for something truer. That noticing is not the end of the road. It's usually where the road actually begins.